So practically speaking, a rule that puts strict liability on platforms to detect and remove copyright infringing uploads means a world of overblocking. It means a world more like television, where only well-connected people can have their voices heard. Only people who have already connected with the powerful institution of a television station or network will have their work disseminated to a wide audience and preserved and be heard. Because in the online world, only those well-connected people will be able to negotiate around the ubiquitous system of copyright filtering. That's not good for free expression. It's not good for, especially for marginalized voices who are not already affiliated with powerful institutions. And now, one myth that you may hear about provision like this is that the platforms can simply take licenses to content. Again, they'll probably hark back to YouTube, which does have licenses with many major media and entertainment distributors over particular content. But the problem with this, again, is that it ignores the vast majority of copyright owners who are individual artists, small businesses, smaller entities that don't know about or are not able to participate in a system like this. Users of major internet platforms can upload anything, and it's impossible, even for the largest platforms, to license every copyrighted work in the world. So altogether, what this means is that the incentives for the platforms will always run towards overblocking of content, not of permitting content to stay up. It invites censorship, it invites misuse. Those who would want to censor content for political reasons, for ideological reasons, will be drawn to this system, will be incentivized to make false claims of copyright infringement because the system will take down material that is claimed to be copyright infringing. And the platforms will be ill-equipped to root out that fraud and determine which of the claims are valid. The practical result of a rule like this will be to keep the existing giant internet platforms, most of which are US-based companies, firmly in control, while making it very hard for new competitors, local services, to arise and grow in scale and capture a lot of public usage and become popular user-generated content platforms. The reason for that is while no company can really comply with this rule, the large companies can come the closest. Google, the owner of YouTube, already has licenses with many major media and entertainment companies that hold copyrights. Facebook is similar. They have the staff and resources to negotiate the legal complexities of a system like this and to work around it as much as possible, but that's very expensive. The original YouTube Content ID system cost about $30 million to build. Almost certainly hundreds of millions have been invested in maintaining it since then. It's not a burden that a smaller competitor can take on. Now, we expect this is what will happen as a result of the European Union Copyright Directive over the next several years as it gets implemented. We'll see an entrenching the dominance of platforms like YouTube and Facebook, and it will be very hard for new European competitors to arise. That's something that I hope that you would try to avoid. I'm going to talk briefly about another provision of the EU Copyright Directive that I hope you will avoid imitating, and that is Article 15, formerly Article 11, commonly called the link tax provision. What this is a right separate from and adjacent to copyright, a right of publishers to stop links to their material from elsewhere when those links contain some amount of text. And this has mainly been applied to news stories and news media content. The goal behind this was noble. It was to drive revenue to the news media. But in practice, it's been fairly disastrous. Now, this has been tried in Spain and tried in Germany, and I believe in some other places as well. What happens, rather than the intended outcome, which was to have news aggregator sites pay licensing fees to the news media in return for linking to their stories, what we saw instead was news aggregators simply stopped linking to stories from the local media in those countries, while they continued to link to stories from foreign media. In practice, again, this was nearly unworkable because the definitions were never clear about how much text triggers this right, to which sites this right applies, and to which sorts of news aggregators or other websites have to comply with this, whether this applies to personal blogs, for example. Once again, as with the filtering mandate, the link text was a provision written with companies like Google in mind, but that entrap every other website that links to news content. This really is attacks one of the fundamental functions of the World Wide Web, which is linking. Linking is ubiquitous, and that ubiquity is a major part of what makes the internet valuable, the ability to link. To encumber that ability in uncertain and varied ways with a legal right of compensation or a legal right to refuse really impacts access to information. Now, there was some thought that enacting this throughout the entire European Union would solve some of these problems, but even there, each country in the European Union is going to be given leeway to implement this directive differently. And those variations are going to make linking ever more complicated. There isn't yet a universal definition of this, and it's not clear that one could really arise. So the link text is another area where I would strongly suggest that Kenya wait and see the results of this implementation in Europe before considering adopting a similar provision.